My childhood neighbour was a lady called Mrs. Oliver. Mrs. Oliver was a math teacher, and she spent her entire career teaching math at a well-established high school. On her very first day, after qualifying at the age of 22, Mrs. Oliver got up in front of classrooms, she taught lessons, she set papers, and she graded assessments. Mrs. Oliver retired at the age of 65. After more than 40 years of experience, she taught her very last day. And on her very final day, what did she do? She got up in front of classes, she taught lessons, she set papers, and she graded assessments. This made me wonder, why would we structure a system where someone with more than 40 years of experience perform the exact same function as someone who's just starting out? What I want to do today is to talk about how our educational system is designed and how it has been designed for the past couple of centuries. Through the stories I tell, I'm hoping to show you that while there are aspects of this model which are still relevant today, there are also some key components which we have to rethink if we want to make high-quality education accessible to all. I want to illustrate my first point by telling you the story of the bakery. Now imagine you own a bakery and you intend to make a living by baking and selling loaves of bread. Your bakery is located in a village with 100 families who will service your clientele. In the morning, go off to the market to buy the ingredients that you need to bake these loaves of bread. When you get back to the bakery, you notice that you spend 1,000 rand on ingredients. After baking the whole day, you sat back and saw what you made, and you see that you've produced 100 loaves of bread. Along comes your accountant and tells you that if you spend 1,000 rand on ingredients and you produce 100 loaves of bread, that you need to sell these loaves at 10 rand a loaf in order to break even. It's 1,000 rand ingredients divided by the 100 loaves you produced will give you a cost price of 10 rand per loaf. Now let's look at a second scenario. Same bakery, same village with 100 families, same 1,000 rand ingredients. But this time, life happens. The bakery is plagued by extensive hours of load shedding. Your baker went on strike and there was a flood in the kitchen. At the end of the day, you stand back and say, what did I produce today? But this time, unfortunately, you only managed to produce 10 loaves of bread. Again, your accountant comes along to do the math. But this time he tells you that if you spend 1,000 rand on ingredients and you only manage to produce 10 loaves of bread, that now you would need to sell these loaves at a minimum of 100 rand a loaf in order to break even. Let's see how this story translates into education. Imagine there's a school. Imagine 1,000 learners. Imagine an annual budget of 200 million rand. Now, those of you who work in education might recognize this as a very elite private boarding school, where parents pay school fees of 200,000 rand per year. At the end of the year, what did the school produce? This school produces 100% pass rate. So along comes the accountant and tell you that if you had an annual budget of 200 million rand and you achieved 100% pass rate, in other words, 1,000 of the kids who were enrolled, all 1,000 of them passed, that you produced a pass at the cost of 200,000 rand per pass. That's your annual budget of 200 million divided by 1,000 kids. Again, let's look at a second scenario. Again, you have a school, again, you have 1,000 learners. But this time, you only have an annual budget of 20 million rand. Now, those of you who work in education will recognize this as a no-fee public school, where the government contributes roughly 20,000 rand per child per year. And this time, life happens. The school is plagued by extensive hours of load shedding. Teachers went on strike, and there was a flood in the village, so our kids missed school for a number of days. At the end of the year, what does this school produce? This school manages to produce only a 10% pass rate. In other words, out of the 1,000 learners enrolled, only 100 of them successfully passed their grade. Your accountant comes along and tells you that if you had an annual budget of 20 million rand and 100 children passed their grade, you might be surprised to notice that what you produced was once again 200,000 Rand per pass. Now this begs to ask the question, why are we paying the same amount per pass for a no-fee public school as we are paying for an elite private boarding school? I'm sure some of you in the audience like graphs, so I'll put one here on the screen for you to see. So what you'll see here on the upper right-hand side of the corner is the elite private boarding school, who manages to produce high quality, but it's simply not affordable. At the lower left-hand side, you'll see the no-fee public school, which is affordable, but struggles to produce quality. You'll see that this graph really illustrates that these two scenarios are two sides of the same problem. So the question is there a way for us to get in the magic spot in the upper right-hand corner, where we manage to produce high-quality education at an affordable price point? Or differently put, what is the lowest cost at which it is possible to provide high-quality schools in the South African context at scale? Remember, when you talk about cost in education, there's two main cost drivers in any school. The one is infrastructure, and the second one is salaries. Keeping with salaries for a moment, let's look at the next story, the story of the hospital. Now imagine you break your arm and you end up needing to go to hospital and ultimately needing surgery. If this is the only information I give you, and I ask you, who will be responsible for your care and well-being while you're at the hospital? You're likely to think of the surgeon. But let's take a closer look at your journey in hospital. Once you arrive, someone will help you fill in some paperwork, help you get admitted, and take your seat. Will this be the surgeon? No. Likely this will be a receptionist. Next up, someone will invite you in, take your vitals, and triage you. Again, not the surgeon, but hopefully a friendly nurse. Next up, X-rays. Here you're likely to be assisted by a radiologist. Finally, once you're in your hospital bed and ready to go to theatre, someone will come and fetch you. Again, likely not the surgeon, but this time plausibly a porter. Only once you're in theatre, the surgeon will get to perform his or her function. But all the while you were in hospital, you felt cared for and looked after. But it required many different role players, all to fulfill their respective functions to achieve that. So let's see again how this translates in the classroom. In a classroom, like in a hospital, there are many different functions happening every single day. Children arrive, attendance is taken, lessons are taught, papers are set, assessments are graded, parents are met, communication is sent out, and many, many, many other things. The difference is that in a classroom, we expect all of these functions to be taken care of by one person, the teacher. So when we say that there's not enough specialist teachers in our system, then the question is, why is it that we continue to use our limited resources, teachers, in an inefficiently and ultimately costly way, expecting them to perform all the functions in a classroom? Is there not a way where we can start thinking about teachers like we think about surgeons in hospitals, where we can increase their reach way beyond the children sitting in front of them? And speaking of reach, let's move to the next story of Netflix. So in days gone by, people's only option for entertainment was to go to the theatre. Now this meant that you had to go to a fixed location at a fixed time. You could watch a live performance, but there was limited options. The only show you could watch was the show that was on that particular night at that particular time. And the cost? 200 Rand per person, because it's expensive to put on a live production. Now some people might argue that nothing beats a live performance. And while that may be true in some aspects, technology has also offered us more options. So let's look at what happened when the world got cinema. Now, you still had to go to a fixed location. You still had to be there at a fixed time. The show still started at a particular moment. But now it was a recorded performance. And accordingly, we had more options. Now, viewers in a country like South Africa could watch actors and actresses from the other side of the globe perform in front of our eyes. and the cost significantly less at R100 per person. Enter the DVD. Now we could watch at home. We could watch anytime. It was still a recorded performance, but now we had many options. We were no longer confined to the 10 movies playing at the cinema on any given day. We could go to a DVD store and pick out of hundreds of different titles. And the cost, R100 per DVD, regardless of how many people watched with you. Finally, the world entered the era of streaming services like Netflix. Now we could watch anywhere. We could watch anytime. It's still a recorded performance, but now we have limitless options. And if you look at the cost, we're now talking about R100 monthly subscription, regardless of how many people watch with you, how many titles you watched, and how many times you watched it over. So if technology has fundamentally changed the mode of delivery of entertainment, and almost any other sector, thereby dramatically increasing accessibility and decreasing cost, is there not some of this value which we can leverage for education? What's the point of these stories? The point is that there's an intrinsic link between the quality and the cost of providing high quality education. If the goal is equitable access for all our children, then we need to halve the cost of providing it. Just to be clear, we're not talking about trimming it at the margins, doing what we've always done, just being more efficiently about it, saving a few rands here and there with a new stationery supplier we found. That's not nearly enough. We need to be willing to drastically rethink the model of education. Which brings me to my last story, the story of Apex. Our organization started our work at Apex High School, a no-fee public school in East River, a community not too far from where we are here today in Stellenbosch. And while the school manages to provide high-quality education to its nearly 1,300 learners, every year the school is being inundated with more learners who want to enter the school. To give you an idea, for the 2024 grade 8 intake, the school received in excess of 2,800 applications, of which it could only admit 200. That means that less than 10% of children who applied to the school could actually be accommodated. So at some point, we had to sit down and ask ourselves, how can we do more? We knew we couldn't build another Apex as it was. The money that it takes to run a traditional school in a proper manner, in the traditional way, was simply too much that we couldn't sustainably and responsibly open another one. So, by looking at the lessons from a bakery, a hospital, and Netflix, we set out on a journey to redesign the classroom. Fast forward a couple of years, and I'm very happy to tell you that we did in fact manage to open another Apex. Our first blended learning high school opened in Kaimandi, Stellenbosch in January 2024. The school design accommodates 1,000 learners. A key component of this model is that we work with 100 learners in a classroom. So the school consists out of 10 classes. We do this by extensively leveraging the benefits of technology. Every child works on their own device. Children work through pre-scripted, pre-recorded lessons, and all lessons are according to the same pedagogy that we use in our face-to-face classes, and is based on the principle of a gradual release of responsibility. All lessons our children work through are according to the South African CAPS curriculum. Another key component of this model is that we assume a teacher in every classroom, accompanied by 2 facilitators. This means that our adult-to-child ratio is 1:33, which enables us to ensure that children are cared for and looked after. The role of the teacher, however, is a highly specialized function, where teachers focus only on academics, and they track and respond to learner data. Imagine what could be possible where teachers are enabled to focus only on academics. We believe by allowing teachers to do what only teachers can do best, we're able to provide a higher quality education while still maintaining a highly individualized and human experience. So what's the foundation of our model? Like Netflix, we use technology to achieve the increased reach and access while maintaining a human and individualized experience. Like the hospital, we're enabling teachers to focus on providing specialized care. And as a result, like the lesson from the bakery, we managed to decrease the cost of providing high quality education. What's the moral of the story? If we're unsatisfied with the state of education in South Africa, if we believe that our children deserve better and more, then we cannot keep doing the same things hoping for different results. If we want something different, we have to do something different. We have to be willing to radically rethink the design of education. Thank you.